The only concern I have right now is that it appears that Councilor McLaughlin is still having trouble connecting to audio. Otherwise, I would be ready to start.
I think he's okay.
Oh, yeah, Councilor McLaughlin, are you all right now?
Well, that's a matter of judgment, but I feel good.
Technologically, I mean.
Well, compare me with the city manager, right? He's right beside me in the next square over. I mean,
well, let me move.
I don't know how you.
On my screen,
I don't know how you do that.
All right. Well, then I am going to ask the Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Amy Bova.
Here.
Lynn Underwood Segley.
Here.
Catherine E. Leonard. Is here.
You waved at us.
Angela McCalla.
Here.
Justin S. McLaughlin.
Here.
Jean Marie Politano.
Here.
Susan D. Taylor.
Here.
There's a quorum present, Madam Chair.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
liberty and justice for all.
Three-part harmony.
I will begin this meeting with saying that when it is time when we ask for public input or public comment, that if you are on your phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand or and *7 to unmute yourself, and that there is a 3-minute limit, which the clerk will be tracking. The first item on the agenda is a public hearing regarding the Community Development Block Grant application. I would like to, before we open the public hearing, I would like to just ask the city manager to briefly touch on any points that he wants to highlight. And I know that we do have some people from church community on the line as well.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. We have with us Trish Reynolds, our Director of Economic Development and Planning, and she can field any questions that the council may have. There are also, as you indicated, there are representatives from Church Community Corporation, our administrator. So I would ask that any be directed to Trish and the representatives from Church Community. They can fill in all the details if you need be.
Okay. Councilor McCalla.
Yep, I just had a couple of questions. On item 3 for public facility for Merton Road, there's an ask amount for $500,000, and I just want to understand why, because I thought that this was kind of like the same amount that was asked for during the last CDBG grant.
Would you like me to answer that, Mayor?
Yes, please.
That was on the application last year for project year 18, and it wasn't funded for a few reasons, and we have cleared up one of the administrative reasons that it failed, and have decided to resubmit it to see if it will qualify this year.
Okay, so it didn't make the cut previously. Is that the same thing for like the Florence Gray Center and stuff, or were there other items on here that didn't necessarily make the cut?
No, so this was the only one that was on in this format last year, is my understanding. And the reason that it didn't make the cut was administrative, and those issues we've cleared up. So we're hoping that this year it may qualify.
So can you tell us a little bit, just to refresh people's memory on Merton Road, what will $500,000 pay for?
It'll basically be streetscape improvements like we've done on other streets in the city. And it's sort of a a type of project that's very familiar to people, repaving and doing different amenities on the street for the residents in the area and the residents citywide.
Okay, thank you. And then my other question was, under item 8, it says city administration, $187,500. What's it for?
I have Sean Saunders here. He's the Deputy Director of Church Community Housing, and he prepared this. So he would be more familiar with those actual numbers, and he'd be able to answer that question.
Okay, Mr. Saunders, can you take yourself off mute? And yep, we can hear and see you now.
Hi, perfect. Yeah, so the $187,500 is the equivalent of 15% of the total asking amount for all of the projects that are being applied for this year, which is the maximum that the city is eligible for asking for with this application this year. The reason that it is so high is obviously the amounts that are being requested for this year are significantly higher than they have been in past years. I did want to touch on one question that Councilor McAlva had regarding the Florence Gray Center. I just wanted to clarify that last year, the Florence Gray Center was awarded $300,000. This year, the ask for $300,000 was actually to completely fund the capital needs project that they had. So this, combined with last year's award, should make them whole for the rehabilitation on the Florence Gray Center, based on the estimates that they have.
Mr. Saunders, I actually have a follow-up question to one that Councilor McCullough raised. So for the Merton Road repairs, what about that road or the repairs that are planned for that road would make it qualify for CDBG money?
Sure. The qualifications for CDBG money are that the funds benefit a low to moderate income clientele. In this case, they are using the low mod area benefit citation, which is for a census tract that is predominantly low to mod income. The census tract that it's within, I can't remember off the top of my head, I apologize, but it is at 67% low mod.
Okay, thank you. At this time, unless the council has any more questions, I'm going to open it up to members of the public, and I would ask that the clerk recognize members of the public who have their hands up.
Yes, it looks like we have phone number ending in 7840. Would you please identify yourself with your name and address for the record?
You may need... Go ahead.
This is Margaret Mulholland, 13 Seaview Avenue, Newport, Rhode Island. This is my first time on Zoom, so I'm a little confused. I wanted to speak about the food trucks in Newport on Bellevue Avenue. So do I need to call back?
You could, so Margaret, this is Mayor Bova. You can stay on the line, and when we get to that item on the docket, we'll be asking for public input then, and you can raise your hand when we get to that item to discuss and give input on the food trucks.
Oh, perfect. So I just pressed 9 at that time.
Yes,
Is
exactly.
that right, to raise my hand? Okay. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. I'm a little confused with this.
Oh, it's all right. It's
Okay.
new for everyone.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I'll be listening in.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to be heard?
No, Madam Chair, I don't see anyone.
Mr. Saunders, did you want to add something else?
Sorry, I guess I just wanted to, I know that last year, one of the things, there was a lot of conversation, I think specifically around the Florence Gray Center and certain aspects of church community housing's relationship with the city. I think it's something that it's always good to clear up publicly just regarding this grant program. Whereas we are the administrator, this grant program is actually funded through HUD. The money comes from HUD to the states, and then the states distribute it out to the municipalities themselves. Church community housing being the administrator, we give guidance and make suggestions based on applications, help to ensure compliance. However, the city and church community housing, we don't make any decisions regarding applications or funding.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Is there any more discussion on the council? Hearing none, I move that we close the public hearing and approve.
Second, Kate Leonard.
Thank you, Councilor Leonard. I will do the roll call vote. Councilor Segley?
Aye.
Councilor Leonard?
Aye.
Councilor McCalla? Margaret, if you're still on the line, can you press *7 to mute yourself? There we go. Councilor McCalla?
Aye.
Councilor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councilor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councilor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion passes.
Application from Morno and Murphy.
The next item is a communication from Mornon and Murphy requesting permission on behalf of the Jamestown, the MV Catherine, and the Coastal Queen to serve alcoholic beverages while at dockside at several stops in Newport Harbor for the 2020 season. I move passage.
Second.
Motion and a second. And is there any discussion on the council?
Yes.
Councilor Leonard?
I have some questions, please. In regard to this application, I want to know, first of all, is this for ticketed passengers only?
Do we have anyone representing this application on the line?
Yes. Hello, this is Christian Infantolino with Morno and Murphy.
Hi.
Oh, can you hear? Okay, you can hear me.
Yes.
Sorry, just trying to figure it out. Yes. So an answer to that question, yes, it is for ticketed passengers. The service, it will only be while they're docked and on board the vessel itself. So non-ticketed passengers can't go on the vessel.
Okay, I have another question, please. How soon before departure would liquor be served, and how long after they're at dock?
Am I still unmuted?
Yes, you are. Please
Okay,
continue.
sorry, I'm learning this myself. So it would be in accordance with the Class G license, and which would allow them to serve alcohol 30 minutes prior to the scheduled departure, and then as soon as they depart, then the service then becomes underneath their Class G state license.
And how about when they return to the dock?
No, it's only prior to departure.
All right, so nothing when they come back. Okay.
No, there's no service when they come back. It's when they are pushed off the dock, then that's then they can do it under their license, but not when they come back, unless it times up with another 30-minute departure.
Okay, thank you very much.
Is there anyone else on the council who has any questions for Mr. Infantolino? Hearing none, I will do a roll call vote. Councilor Segley?
Aye.
Councilor Leonard?
Aye.
Councilor McCalla?
Aye.
Councilor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councilor Napolitano? If your mouth said aye, I just wasn't sure. Okay, thank you. Councilor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Application for a special event license, Newport Film, DBA Newport Film Drive-In Documentary Film Screening, Easton's Beach Parking Lot 3, July 9th, 2020, from 7:30 p.m. to 10:30 p.m.
I move passage on this special event license.
A second, Councilor Taylor.
Thank you, Councilor Taylor, for the second. Councilor Leonard?
I'd like to recuse myself from this, please.
Thank you. We will recuse you. I'm just noting that. Is there anyone else on the council who wants to be heard on this issue? Is there anyone from the public who would like to be heard on this issue? Seeing none, I will call the roll call vote. Councilor Cycli.
Aye.
Councilor McCalla.
Aye.
Councilor McLaughlin.
Aye.
Councilor Napolitano. Aye from Councilor Napolitano, thank you. Councilor Taylor.
Aye.
Mayor Bova, aye. The motion passes 6-0.
Application for a new vittling license, Beverage Newport Shipyard LLC, DBA Bell's Cafe, 1 Washington Street.
I move passage of this application.
Second.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the council on this item?
Yes.
Councilor Leonard. And
I
going
have
forward,
a-
can you just make sure to raise your hand to make it easier for me to keep track? Thank you.
All right.
Continue.
I have a couple of questions regarding this Newport Shipyard application. I looked at, this is for the victualling license, and I see that the time is from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. And I see for numbers of seating on this one that it says current seating 50, and for expansions, new seating 50. And I brought this up because I think later on the docket, and we might want to look at them together, there may be a different number of seats that are discussed. So a couple of questions that came up in regard to this deal with the hours of operation, which we see it for the VIT license, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Is the seating correct at 50 additional seats?
Is there someone on the line representing this application?
Dana. Could be Mr. Dana. He looks like he's muted.
And
Yep.
Attorney John Russell is present as well.
Thank you.
Oh, Eli, go ahead.
No, I'll let you go, John.
Oh, hi, Mayor, members of the council. Nice to see you. I don't know
So
why.
I'm sorry. So will phone number ending, oh, okay, they muted themselves. Great.
It should be better
Okay.
now.
Hi, Mayor, members of the council. It's still reverberating.
We'll just have to deal with it.
Okay, sorry. I'll try this on my phone. Maybe this is better.
Oh, sounds like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. So, hi, John Russell, Adler, Pollock, and Sheehan, here with Eli Dana from Newport Shipyard. The correct seating is 30 indoor and 100 outdoor seating in the application that we filed as it relates to both the food and liquor license.
Okay, so let me ask you this. And the application that we have, it has additional 50s, but in fact, it's 100, is that correct?
It's 30 indoors and 100 outside.
And how many are presently for outdoor seating?
I would have to lean on Eli Dana for that one, if you know Eli.
For the outdoor seating, it wouldn't change from what we currently have out there.
Okay. And one question that was brought to me was in terms of, and I'm surmising part of this, in terms of people who would come there to dine, I would, if you could tell me, as the clientele that would be here mostly people who are docked at the shipyard and neighbors, because there's the parking element is something that people have asked about.
I would say the majority, at least later in the day, would be mostly from the shipyard.
Okay.
But it is open to the public, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no additional parking, right, Eli, in regards to the use of the liquor license, correct?
Correct.
Is there parking available in the shipyard? Should more people come there to dine?
Yes, in the afternoon, we've got availability in the afternoon once the machinery is not moving around the shipyard. And plus there's the city lot across the street.
Okay.
So.
And in terms of serving, it would be 9 p.m. for both the VIT license and the liquor license?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Councilor McCalla?
This is Angela McCalla. I just wanted to ask John and Eli just a follow-up question. I think I shared the same sentiments as Kate, but I just wanted to be clear about the process. So I know that the end date or end time is 9 p.m., but are you going to stop serving at 9 p.m. like exactly then? And then will folks be allowed, let's say last call happens all the time and, it's not unusual for folks to try to maybe purchase an extra drink or two. Are they still going to be allowed to hang out even after 9 p.m.?
Councilor, thank you, John Russell. Yes, they would stop serving alcohol, beer and wine and food at 9. However, if somebody purchases food and wants to enjoy their meal along with drinks after 9, they would be able to sit there. I'm sure that the Safe Harbor Newport Shipyard is going to come up with some sort of plan. But as of right now, you'd be able to enjoy your meal with some drinks.
So I'm just wondering if it happens to be at 9 p.m., is it possible for you guys to ask customers if they're going to be longer than 9 p.m. to have the option to dine inside?
I'm certain
enjoy
we can
their
look
drink.
into various items. This is new, obviously, for us, for the shipyard. But like any restaurant in Newport, once you purchase your meal, even if it's at 9 and you're outside, we would want them to enjoy their meal.
So I think that my concern is that people are going to be hanging out longer after 9 p.m., which is going to potentially cause a disruption to the neighborhood. And so I'm thinking in terms of clarification, I would want that clarification, that to be clarified before I support this.
So you would be looking for some sort of time by which the shipyard would remove patrons from the outdoor dining area?
Right.
I know it's
So-
a little strong, but
Right. So a plan of some sort. So again, using the previous example of, if it's 8:50 and people are still purchasing drinks, again, your license is good for 9 p.m. Can we have the other patrons have the option to dine inside? I'm just looking for some type of plan to make sure that there's not this big elongated time where people are going to hang out, create more noise, because you are next to neighborhoods. And, I am sensitive to that.
of course. Well, we'll look into items. Eli Dana has already had a discussion with the Point Association to discuss the timing, and he mentioned to them that both licenses end at 9 p.m. Similar to other restaurants, though, in the city, you're allowed to order food and have drinks after, you can sit after you order them after the closing time and enjoy them. So it's just, if there's 50 people outside and we only have 30 seats inside, particularly now with the COVID pandemic, it would be difficult to do that right now.
Yeah, I think what we envision is that, most likely the last orders would go in at 8:30 to be brought out, close to 9 o'clock. And, our staff is going to want to get out of there. We want people out of out of the shipyard as close to 9 o'clock as possible. It's in our best interest to get people out. We don't want to be a late night establishment in any way. There's a lot of stuff going on in the shipyard, and we rather, we want to be as close to that time thing as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Taylor.
Hi, hi, John. Hi, Eli. This is Susan Taylor. Yes, I just wanted to, as I'm sure you guys know, Angela and Kate and I were all contacted by the Point Association summarizing the productive conversation that you had had with some of the concerned residents. And I just wanted to sort of recap those points. And I will say first, if I'm dining in a restaurant and food service and alcohol service stop at 9 o'clock, I would be very disappointed if you came to the table and asked to take my plate away or my glass away if I hadn't finished. It seems to me like that's the kind of situation that's resolved by just saying that there would be a server on site until the last table goes. So I would ask you to consider that kind of a solution. And so to recap the email that we got from the Point Association, the question about the 9 p.m. closing time and making sure that it doesn't just become a place where people can hang out after they've purchased a whole bunch of alcohol. I am trusting that you guys know how to be reasonable with this, and that then if problems arise, we'll deal with that, if there are problems. And certainly the understanding is that you have not applied for entertainment, and that would take a separate application. Are you?
That's correct. We have not applied for an entertainment license. And,
right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the neighbors the neighbors love the shipyard, love Bell's. And as Tom pointed out, many of us still miss the rum line. So you may see a lot of walk-in traffic, looking forward to being able to walk to a restaurant in the neighborhood without having to go all the way downtown. I just wanted to clarify what was meant on the application for the fiddling license here that we're considering, where you say current seating is 50 and new seating is 50. Should we just disregard those figures and look at the 30 inside and 100 outside?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The shipyard has a reputation to hold up, of course, and
Yeah.
has a great relationship with their neighborhood.
Yes, it does.
Councilor McLaughlin.
Thank you, Councilor McLaughlin. I want to follow up on Councilor Taylor's comment about you're not asking for an entertainment license. And by some measures, you really can't even put speakers out where you're going to be serving dinner. So that's an issue that we're going to have to address, but you should be aware of that. If you have anything that's radiating sound outside, you're going to have to come to us and get an entertainment license.
Of course, we understand.
And I want to just make one other point that I realize we're talking about numbers, and the council does have I believe, the authority to say the license is predicated on the number of people that you say you're going to serve. But to some extent, the capacity of the space will be determined by the fire marshal, who will go down and say, this is how many people can be in this space. It could be more or less than you're asking for. And the council does have the right, I believe, to say, well, it will be limited to the numbers you're putting before us, but that's been a problem in the past, and we should be aware of it. Thank you.
I would like to recognize members of the public who would like to be heard.
Yes. Phone number ending in 6433. Could you please identify yourself, name and address for the record?
Hi, I'm Pauline Wallace, 33 Marsh Street.
Please go ahead.
Hello. Hi, this is Pauline Wallace, 33 Marsh Street, and I do appreciate the reach out that the shipyard did to the Point Association, but I do have concerns, and mainly this. As I've told them, I love living near the shipyard. I am in a butter. The Danas have been great neighbors, and I appreciate they've really picked up Marsh Street where I live, and it full appreciation to that. But as we consider these issues, we have to recognize that Safe Harbor is the owner. And when they made the announcement of this purchase, they expanded their portfolio of facilities to 85. They operate in 19 states, and Safe Harbor is the largest owner and operator of marinas in the world. And so that's why I am looking at this, because I think it could be a profit center. It's a beautiful venue. But my specific concerns regarding the application, it seems deficient in that there is certainly a difference between what is written on the application and the schematic with the number of seating, which you have already pointed out. There's also a bar area or a bar thing. I'm not sure if people will, does that count? People are standing there, or if there are planning on being seats there or stools there. I'm also concerned about the parking. I know the shipyard for their own employees provides some subsidy for using the paid parking, but I'm concerned with the expanded hours that they will seek parking throughout the neighborhood. Already, subcontractors and vendors of the shipyard use, of course, the unpaid parking, which means in the Point neighborhood in parking their vehicles. And I know, especially on my street, if I don't get my grocery shopping and get back to my house by 7 a.m., I probably am not going to get a parking space. So it is an absolute concern. And I know the yard is saying that they have 20 spaces that they're allocating. So are those 20 designated spaces for restaurant patronage? Because it now sounded like, well, those spaces will only be available as the yard clears out, as it normally does throughout the day. So I have concerns about the parking. Also, just if we're looking at these two together, the safety with 20 cars in the lot, will there be additional signage? We've had incidents over there, and I would hope that there would be something out there. I also am concerned that, this, and might be death by 1,000 cuts. You have events at the yard, they're always well run, not a problem. I'm concerned about events using the Bell space. And I also did not, because they are not required to attach their previous application. I don't know if they were seasonal before, but now they will be annual. So I would like some assurance that, this is not going to be open year round.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm going to allow Mr. Russell and Mr. Dana the opportunity to respond.
Our intention on the annual versus seasonal is, I believe all along we've been able to be open all year. We just haven't because the business is too slow in the winter. We may shorten the shutdown period a little bit, but I think, I don't think there's enough business to keep through the winter. So we'll most likely close for at least 2 months.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to be heard? Is there? Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the council? Hearing none, I will do a roll call vote. Councilor Segley.
Aye.
Councilor Leonard.
Aye.
Councilor McCullough.
Aye.
Councilor McLaughlin.
Aye.
Councilor Napolitano. Okay, did we just lose her?
Oh, there she is.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm not touching it and doing funny things.
We're not blaming you. It's always blame the gremlins and the computers.
Can I just make a comment?
Yes.
In terms of what they want to do, I think is really nice down there. And obviously in the wintertime, the outside would not be open, but it would be the inside. So I just want people to understand that maybe they thought year round a 10 up or something, but I don't think that's the case.
Thank you. Councilor Taylor.
Aye.
Mayor Bova, aye. The motion passes 7-0.
Application for a new Vittling license, Kinsley's Ltd, DBA Newport Blues Cafe, 286 Thames Street, first and second floors per restrictions on file in the state clerk's office, and this is in conjunction with the liquor license transfer.
I move passage of this application.
Second, Councilor Taylor.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the council on this item? Is there anyone from the public that would like to be heard on this item? Seeing and hearing none, I will, Councilor Leonard? Councilor Leonard, you're muted, I'm sorry.
This is in conjunction also with the liquor license that's coming along. And in terms of, I can't remember if it had an entertainment license. Yes, it did. The
Yes.
reason I'm bringing it up, I'll discuss this further when we get to the next one, which is the entertainment license. Or do you want me to discuss it now?
If it's regarding the entertainment license, then it can wait until we get to the entertainment license.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, then I will do a roll call vote on the victualling license. Councilor Segley.
Aye.
Councilor Leonard.
Aye.
Councilor McCalla.
Aye.
Councilor McLaughlin.
Aye.
Councilor Napolitano.
Aye.
Councilor Taylor.
Aye.
Mayor Bova, aye. The motion passes.
A public hearing on a new entertainment license, Class A indoors, Kinsley Ltd, DBA Newport Blues Cafe, 286 Thames Street, first and second floors.
This is a public hearing, and would anyone from the public like to be heard? And if you are a member of the public who would like to be heard on this application, if you're on your phone, you can press *9, or on the Zoom app, you can just press raise hand. Hearing none, I move that we close the public hearing and approve.
Second, Councilor Taylor.
There is a motion and a second. I will recognize Councilor Leonard to give comment. You do have to unmute yourself, Councilor Leonard.
Okay. I'm looking at the application, and this is for indoor entertainment only. And I'm looking at the second page, which I've never seen before, where it's number of members in a band, various, how many musicians, various, types of instrument, how many vocalists, various. I would like to see a maximum on that. Is somebody there from the establishment?
Is there anyone on the line? Can we recognize?
Matt Leys is here, attorney for the transfer.
Thank you. Mr. Lees, can you speak to Councilor Leonard's question?
Yes, I'm actually going to defer to.
I'm sorry, can you try again? You cut off in the middle.
Something strange just happened. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I was actually going to defer to my client, Brian Foley, who is here. He would better be able to speak to any maximum that might be reasonable for his business.
Thank you.
You recognize him, please.
Thank you. Can we please unmute Mr. Foley? Mr. Foley, I believe that you should be able to speak now. You may have to unmute yourself. If you are on your phone, if you press *7, it will allow you to unmute.
I think you're still muted, Brian. Yeah, I also have him on the phone here. I can ask him as an aside to see if he can tell me directly, and then I can tell you if that makes sense.
That might be a better option given that we're having technical issues.
Yes. Hold on one second, please.
And in the meantime, I'm going to recognize the city solicitor, Mr. Bean.
Thank you, Chris Bean, City Solicitor. we do have to be a little careful about putting limitations on some of these items because it starts getting into the area of the content of the music in terms of the number of vocalists, what type of instruments are going to be used, and so forth. I just want to be careful. This is a entertainment license for a venue that's had an entertainment license indoors. So it's fine if you want to get information from the applicant on what they plan to do, but I think when you start getting down into who, what type of musicians they're going to have, what type of instruments they're going to have, even the number of them, you're starting to go down a slippery slope.
Mr. Leys, are you ready to speak again?
I believe I am, Mayor Bova. My client indicated that typically you'd have about 4 members of the band. You may have as many as 7. Obviously, the reason it was stated as various is because it depends on what the band is. I would just add, and I may have missed what Solicitor Bean commented on, but you know, they're still subject to the noise ordinance, which I think is sort of maybe at the root of the concern as to how many members there are. So it may not be so much the number of members in the band as it is how loud the band is. So we, you know, not knowing exactly the band size in all instances, it'd be preferable not to have a limit.
Thank you, Mr. Leys. I'm going to recognize Councilor McCalla.
This is Angela McCalla. I think I was just kind of on the same viewpoint. Like, I think that how I interpreted various was really dependent on like cover bands and stuff like that. So it may be hard to kind of like tell because I'm sure that you probably have various contracts and maybe special theme nights of some sort that it would be kind of hard to kind of like, I don't know, kind of hone that in. So I think that's my thought.
Thank you, Councilor McCalla. Councilor Leonard, did you have another comment?
I did. I just wanted to say, I've usually seen it where there's maximum number, and I understand what the solicitor says. Is this with doors and windows closed?
I would ask the city solicitor to weigh in on that because I believe that depends on the type of entertainment license they're requesting.
Yeah, it's not unusual for indoor music to have a condition that doors and windows remain closed. I mean, I believe if we did a inventory of our entertainment licenses indoors, you might see that as a common condition. I know in the not too distant past, we have been placing a lot of reliance on the noise ordinance that most establishments will try to keep their doors and windows shut because of the noise in it, the noise ordinance. But you can, there are specific restrictions that have been placed to that effect.
Councilor Leonard?
I would like to add the condition of doors and windows closed because on the streets behind this establishment, there are houses. So I would like to make a motion that doors and windows are closed.
Mayor Bova, if I may.
Just one moment, Mr. Leys.
Sure.
Is there a second for Councilor Leonard's motion? We can hear you, Councilor Napolitano, if you do want. Yeah.
Listen, all the.
Oh. But thank you, Councilor Napolitano. I will allow, I'll recognize Mr. Leys to respond, and then I'll recognize Councilor Stegley.
Thank you. I was just going to say that my client has no objection to that condition.
Thank you. Councilor Stegley? You're on mute.
This place has had an entertainment license for a very long time. What is different about this application from any other application? I don't see the issues with it.
I agree. Councilor Napolitano.
Yeah, I was just going to say, by virtue of the stage, they really, are limited with the number of musicians. So, I don't consider it a problem. I don't believe I've ever read that they've had a problem down there.
Is there specific discussion on Councilor Leonard's proposed amendment? Councilor Leonard?
I would like to thank the attorney, Mr. Leys, for saying that his establishment that he represents has no problem with doors and windows closed. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I will do a roll call vote on the amendment to the application. Councilor Segley?
Aye.
Councilor Leonard?
Aye.
Councilor McCalla?
Aye.
Councilor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councilor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councilor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The amendment passes 7-0. Is there any further discussion on the application as amended? Hearing none, I will call the roll call vote for that. Thank you very much, Mr. Lees. Councilor Segley, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilor Leonard?
Aye.
Councilor McCalla?
Aye.
Councilor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councilor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councilor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The application passes. And I will add, I'm sorry, Madam Clerk, I will just add, we have another public hearing on this at the next council meeting, and it would align with the phase 3 reopening, which is when indoor entertainment would begin again. So for anyone that's keeping track of those phases and was concerned, they wouldn't the entertainment wouldn't actually begin until phase 3 when it is once again allowed. Madam Clerk?
Yes, a resolution regarding the homestead exemption.
Thank you. I would like to introduce this resolution. It is our responsibility as a government to work to try to ensure that housing is available and accessible for all Newporters, and to work to help Newporters be able to stay in their homes. A homestead exemption would serve as a tool to give our city the flexibility it needs, and it can help alleviate the tax burden on homeowners while still allowing the city to provide essential services. This resolution asks staff to come up with multiple options for how to implement a homestead exemption in Newport and come back to the council this November with those options. It does not ask the staff to simply apply it carte blanche. This will allow the council to make an informed decision on what is right for Newport. The burden is on us as a body to make the right choice and to make the right choices on how to best serve our community. I strongly feel that we need to act on doing something to help ease the tax burden on homeowners. And we have the ability already to make a homestead exemption. So I move passage on this resolution.
Second, Jane Napolitano.
Thank you, Councilor Napolitano. And before we begin discussion, I just want to make a quick, I want to move to make a quick amendment because there is a typo in the resolution. And I would like to amend the resolved so that the options would be presented to the council in November of 2020.
Second.
This November.
Councilor
Thank
Taylor.
you, Councilor Taylor. In that,
Madam
that
Chair,
would just,
allow me just, did you also do a typo in terms of which budget you wanted this to be incorporated into?
no, and that was just about what I was going to explain. So we've already passed the FY21 budget. That is the budget that we passed at the last council meeting, and that is the budget that goes into effect on July 1.
Okay.
And this is asking for, yeah. But this is asking the staff to present us with options this coming November, so that we can begin having the conversations on the homestead exemption and how it could be applied, and even have a workshop so that we can discuss it, so that we have those informed options ahead of starting the process of the FY22 budget. Is there discussion on, I know there's a lot of hands up, and I just want to ask if there's discussion on the amendment or discussion on the actual resolution.
I'd like to discuss the amendment.
Okay, thank you. Councilor McLaughlin.
This is Councilor McLaughlin. I would feel uncomfortable voting for that amendment that would bring this matter back to what is essentially a lame duck city council. The election having occurred in early November and the council only meeting for one more time after that. So I would suggest that December would be just fine, and the recently elected council would be in the driver's seat to figure out which way to go.
I think that that's a good point, Councilor McLaughlin, and I'd be willing to rescind my proposed amendment and make that motion to amend to have the presentation be in December of 2020.
I would second that, Councilor Taylor.
Thank you. Is there discussion on the proposed amendment for December 2020? I will do a roll call vote on the amendment. Councilor Segley?
Aye.
Councilor Leonard?
Aye.
Councilor McCalla?
Aye.
Councilor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councilor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councilor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The amendment passes. Now we have in front of us the resolution as amended, and I will recognize Councilor Leonard. Councilor Leonard, you're muted.
She's still muted.
Look, read.
Still muted, Councilor Leonard.
I pushed it
There.
3 times. Okay.
There you go.
Homestead exemptions are of various sources and various places, and they're all done differently. And they can get very complicated. And homestead exemptions, we have to recognize that they are complicated and they're different approaches. We now have a dual tax rate that benefits homeowners greatly because businesses pay, like the homeowners is like $10.28, and the businesses are $15 and change per thousand. And homesteading often has a possibility of devaluing properties if you recognize, which we all do, that some properties and some taxpayers are going to have to make up the difference of the amount of revenues we take in if we have homesteading. And the values of properties, if we find, and I understand this totally. I just want to make sure everybody understands that if a city or a town puts in homesteading where it's different than, let's say, the two rates, what then happens is that a lot of people will say, and it happens in a lot of communities, well, I'm here 2 months a year, I'm here 3 months a year, and I don't think I should pay much more than the person who lives here. I don't use any services. And in those cases, you often find that people will sell properties and then they hit the market. And if you have a big inventory, that basically puts a glut on the market and lowers values. Newport, I think we have to recognize too, we do have programs for those whose income is low. And I, for one, want to see families here. I like to see full-time residents here. I would like that we work with families that can keep their homes. I don't want to see families lose out. And I think that we need to really look at it as a big picture and have a workshop, more than one workshop, but I agree that it should probably be discussed more in December. But I can say that if we're asking the administration to look at it, I don't know who on the administration would actually give all these points. I would suggest that they would go to a lot of other cities and towns and see how they do it, what the comparisons are, not just that we make a discussion and not recognize that we have a dual rate. I just like to see people remain in our town and enjoy where they're living, but I also don't want to flood the market and affect values in a very negative way. All you have to do is really look. You can look in parts of Florida. You can look at Martha's Vineyard. Different states do it differently. So I think it takes a whole lot of research, not just come back to us and tell us. I think the public needs to weigh in, and businesses need to weigh in, and residents need to weigh in. So I would like to see that.
Thank you, Councilor Leonard. And I agree that this is something that needs a lot of research and discussion. That's why I wanted to have this start now, so that there's plenty of time for administration to do the work and do the research and bring it back to us with plenty of time to figure out how to apply it in the FY22 budget if we believe that it's if it's applicable.
I would like to see if the administration's going to start the process, I would like to see various communities or states where it's been done so that we have comparisons to discuss.
I think that you can provide those suggestions to the administration as well.
Thank you.
We're just going to follow the statute. There's already a statute on it that sets forth the availability of what we have, and we'll just apply that formula accordingly based upon different scenarios. It's already set in law. It's already set in law, Kate. There's a specific statute that was passed for Newport on this, and that's what we will reflect on and provide you the financial information that otherwise is reflective of that statute. We're not reinventing the wheel here.
I know
the
we're
law,
not, but I
the
would
law
like
already exists.
Statute exists would be what would your suggestions be for the various scenarios?
And we'll have that conversation when the staff comes to us with their suggestions, and we can, individual counselors can provide suggestions to staff as well on things that they think need to be looked in specifically. I'm going to recognize Councilor McLaughlin.
Let's see, am I muted? I'm
no,
unmuted.
you are not. We can hear you.
This is Councilor McLaughlin. A little bit of humor goes a long way sometimes. And so I just want to confess that in 2010, my opponent proposed that we have a homestead exemption. I went home and spent the afternoon researching it, and I never mentioned it again because it was such a good idea, and I didn't want to help him get elected. But that was 10 years ago, and things have evolved over that time. And at various times, people have suggested we look into it and do this and that. And I mean, this is a wonderful idea, but I want to give due credit to the fact that Councilors Napolitano, Segley, Leonard, and Taylor introduced a resolution in December of 2018 at the beginning of this council asking the administration to research homestead exemption. And they deserve credit for having brought this up, but we never got a report back. And I'm going to say that my resolution last December talking about funding of schools also raised the idea of the whole panoply of things that are available to us to deal with how we fund ourselves. And I want to just make one important point, and that is this is a quiver in our arrow. This is an arrow in our quiver that we should pull out and use when it will be most useful. And one of the reasons for my resolution in December was to raise the idea that we need to be looking at how we will deal with the tax increase associated with building a new high school. So in some ways, we may want to think about when is the best time to apply it to have the best impact on the community's ability to pay their taxes. I mean, that's one consideration. We need to consider what the impact on commercial is, because when we start shifting money away from residents, we're shifting it somewhere else. I mean, some people see this as this is just tax the rich because they don't live here and they have expensive homes, and we'll shift it over to them. There's a shifting going on here, and we need to be aware about what we're doing. The fact that the existing legislation may limit us to a very narrow response is no reason not to get out of the box and think about, is there another way to do it? And we've talked, city manager brought up the idea of doing a transfer tax to Kate. Don't get excited. She wasn't in favor of it. but in some people's minds, it would raise a substantial amount of revenue with what might be a minimum impact. But it merits being researched. And I know that many of us have talked to a member of the community who pointed out that a good thing to do with a tax like that is to apply it to certain expenses. And in this case here, we could have used a tax like that and said it will only be used for the schools. I actually think that's what the city manager had in mind. So as we move forward, I think we ought to get out of the box, recognize all of the requests that have been made over time, and consider a variety of ways of doing this. Heaven knows, you bring in a homestead exemption of 20%, it's going to save me a lot of money, but it may not be the best thing for the community. And so we need to come up with what's best for the entire community. And I look forward to that discussion in December. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McLaughlin. Councilor Napolitano?
Yes, I do appreciate talking about this, and also the comments made by both Councilor Leonard and McLaughlin. And I can tell you that I worry about the businesses in town, the COVID-19. We don't know if we're going to get a second round. And I think that could have some impact on whatever decision we make. But I think the most important thing, I think we really have to have a public workshop. Many people don't understand that when you do something like this, we're actually giving the break to long-term residents, but we have to make that money up in the budget. And that will fall on commercial, at least, in a real simple example. So I think we really got to have a workshop prior to coming back with this. I mean, I'm willing, in December to come back on this, but I think it's important for the public to really understand what we're doing and to have a workshop first so that they can have the benefit of what we're seeing and, kind of have some input on it, because it's going to affect a lot of people.
Thank you, Councilor Napolitano. And I agree that a workshop would be really beneficial for the public, but also for the council to allow us to have in-depth discussions with administration on the various proposals and options that they would bring forward. Is there any further discussion on the council? Hearing none, I will do a roll call vote. Councilor Segley?
Aye.
Councilor Leonard?
Aye.
Councilor McCalla?
Aye.
Councilor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councilor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councilor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion passes.
The resolution regarding the state of emergency extension of time period.
I move passage on this resolution, which would extend the state of emergency and reaffirm the emergency power of the city manager for an additional 30 days.
Second.
There is a motion and a second, and I will add that this would expire on July 28th. Councilor McLaughlin. Councilor McLaughlin, you're muted.
This is Councilor McLaughlin. I want to make an amendment. I want to offer an amendment to this resolution that we extend these powers only until our next city council meeting. I'm troubled by the fact that, we're moving along and we're not necessarily paying attention to maybe where we're going. If we're not going to be able to actually return to a normal state until we have a vaccine, I don't think the council wants to sit in the back bench and not take the leadership role that it was elected to take. And that's one reason why I asked the council to go back to having in-person meetings. I think we need to show the community that we're prepared to do the job that we were elected to do. And without any offense intended to the city manager, we were elected to do these things, and we can continue to do those with the city manager, but I think we should bring that authority back to ourselves and take a stronger, take a stronger role as things go forward. Because I wouldn't want to do this 30 days at a time until there's a vaccine, because that could be sometime next year. So that my motion is that we only extend it until we meet in person, and that we can reconsider it at that time once we find out that we can do that. So that would be, I believe, the 8th of July.
Is there a second for Councilor McLaughlin's motion?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Napolitano. I will recognize Councilor McCalla if she wants to speak on this issue. Your hand is up.
Yeah, I just want to say overall, I don't see the big deal in extending the 30 days. The reality of the situation is we can pretty much get rid of this anytime that we want to. So I'm not really following why it's just like we have to do this now. And I don't think that any one of us on the council are disaster emergency experts. So I just feel like in this particular situation, I'm okay with the city extending for 30 days.
Thank you, Councilor McCalla. Councilor Napolitano.
Yeah, I thought the resolution really should have been to reconsider this maybe July 8th when we're together. I think 30 days, to go out 30 days at a time is kind of long, particularly since every single week we're getting the updates. Little by little, everything is reopening. And, I think the manager's done a wonderful job. But having said that, we do have, to really assume our roles again. We're meeting through Zoom. It's a bit awkward. And I just would like to continue it to the next meeting. That's what I thought he was asking for.
Councilor Napolitano, can I just ask for clarification? Because
Sure.
The resolution that was put in front of us by the city manager would allow the state of emergency to continue for another 30 days. So it would continue until July 28th.
Yeah.
And my understanding was that the amendment from Councilor McLaughlin would only extend those powers until July 8th. Were you asking to just continue this resolution until July 8th?
Yeah, that's what I was asking. Until, if we're going to be meeting together, I just,
well, I think
and
that
I'm taking into account the reopening process.
I think the city managers, I think the state of emergency that we're currently in expires before July 8th. So we would need to reaffirm it if we were going to reconsider on July 8th.
It actually expired June 21st. Let me if I can just make a couple of points, because I'm not going to argue against anything in this, and it's not my province to argue one way or the other on this. I just thought that this should be on the docket, since I didn't feel comfortable just unilaterally letting this thing lapse without having a discussion with the council as to what your thought process has been. I'm not interested in usurping any type of authority, and I think it's actually been pretty good that we've been able to do these types of meetings, and we're retrofitting the chambers so that you come back on July 8th as well. There's some other things that are in my mind about funding and the like that I still haven't resolved, and no one has resolved in terms of state of emergency. So this is not a big issue for me one way or the other. We're not really in an emergency anymore per se, though we all are walking on eggs. There's nothing that I need to do emergent tomorrow or the next day, I don't think, other than some small things in terms of some of the operations in the city that normally I think the council would opine on and make a determination on. So I don't really have I just want the council to know I don't begrudge this either way. I just put it on just for a discussion because of I think it would, again, be imprudent for me just to have unilaterally allowed it to lapse and say, oh, by the way, it's lapsed. So those are my thoughts.
Can I ask Is there a potential financial impact to us no longer being in a state of emergency?
I honestly, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think so. Though there was some discussions, you know, these discussions that we have with the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns and the governor's office, there's a lot of uncertainty, more so in terms of the CARES Act funding. One of the things that came into just today is normally in terms of reimbursement, there's a 75-25 split in which the municipality has to contribute 25% of the cost, and FEMA will pick up the 75% in an emergent situation. The CARES Act funding apparently will now pick up the 25%, so we can theoretically be made whole on a lot of the costs that we've incurred in terms of ones that are tied to that. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. I'm fine with July 8th and letting it come up again, or do whatever the council wishes. I'm not going to. No, my feelings aren't going to be hurt if this thing lapses. It makes business a little difficult. It makes a couple of things that are being considered a little more difficult, but I can bring, you know, I can ask you respectfully to come in at any time on 48 hours notice, and we can do it the old way, and that's fine with me.
Would you be able to give us a more, if we only extended the powers until July 8th, would you be able to give us a more clear answer on the potential financial impacts? I mean, recognizing that things are unclear.
Sure, I'll try. I don't think there are. You know, every municipality is wrestling with this simply because the pandemic has become the norm, and all these ways that we're operating are the norm today, at least. And so there's nothing emergent. You know, there's nothing that we need to hop on tomorrow, or our EOC is closed. It's more some of these little nuances that I'm worried about. And to answer your question, sure, I'll try to give you a clear answer on July 8th. Sure.
Thank you. I want to recognize Councilor Taylor.
Thank you. I think that it's important that we know where the buck stops, whether when the declaration of emergency is in play, then the city manager has these powers. And for example, Joe, you mentioned that it lapsed on, I thought it was Monday, but it could have been Sunday indeed, if you're counting exactly the 30 days and so on. And so when it lapses, who do you say between Sunday and today, have you still had the power to the authority? Okay.
I haven't. And let's just say that there hasn't been a lot of things that I've had to exercise.
Oh, I understand that.
In this instance, the only thing, and actually we have a resolution on. You have a resolution on that we're going to talk about. That I'll say I beat the resolution, or the administration beat the resolution of the punch a little bit in terms of road closures, that we were able to accommodate businesses in a little quicker fashion than that resolution, I think, contemplated. So I haven't had to operate at all. Let me give you one.
I've got more questions, just so you know.
Yeah, but go ahead, please. Go ahead. Go ahead.
We have an emergency management team that's in place. Do they still have the same authority when the declaration of emergency lapses?
The answer is no, and I could declare an emergency tomorrow. That's the oxymoron here. You could say, or it could be terminated today. I could declare another one tomorrow, and we're back into the 7-day cycle if there was something that was emergent and required. So I'm not that if you want to continue it, if you wish it to just continue the powers, the authority, which is fairly significant, July 8th, I'm fine with that. And I had contemplated just allowing it to lapse, but then I thought, well, out of overabundance of caution, I should have this discussion with you anyway.
I want to allow the city solicitor to respond, though, including some of your questions, Councilor Taylor, because he looks like he's been wanting to.
That's totally fine. I still have more.
Yeah, thank you. The only thing I did want to point out was actually Councilor Taylor brought it up, that once it's not renewed, we do not have a state of emergency. So a lot of the abilities, the powers that are imposed by the Emergency Management Act are no longer in place. And just a reminder that the city manager is the day-to-day administrator of everything in Newport and of government in Newport, the day-to-day. The council is really the legislative body and also the policymaker. But there's a lot of day-to-day stuff that it would be prudent, I believe, and it's up to the council because you are the policy holders, that the city manager may still need some of that authority on a day-to-day basis. For example, the outdoor reopening of these establishments, that was, I saw it, I was involved, but Joe was living that day in and day out, and that's not something the council would have been able to do. I'd be a little careful on this, but I think extending it to July 8th is, we can further refine this discussion.
Well, Chris, I thank you for that, because that was exactly the next point that I was going to raise, which is that the city manager has had a degree of flexibility which allows him to be nimble and to respond in an extremely timely fashion and a proactive fashion as we go through the reopening, and these pinpointed decisions need to be made in a timely fashion. And so I just worry that the council's decision-making process when it comes to special events or licensing, that kind of thing, we're a tanker that's turned slowly in some of these instances. So I just want us all to think about that before we terminate the declaration of emergency, that we're losing Brian Dugan and the emergency management team. We're taking away that ability for nimbleness from Joe, and we are still in a period where we have not yet embarked on phase 3. And I have appreciated the regularity with which Joe has been consulting us on the decisions that he makes. And I think it's, of course, important that he continue that and recognize the importance of input from the council and from the public. But, you know, I'm fine with extending this to July 8th. I'm probably also fine with extending it longer. And Jamie, Mayor Bova, I just wanted to say, you've mentioned July 28th a couple of times, and that would be 34 days. So it's actually July 24. Unless, and I defer to the solicitor and the city manager, are we counting this as one continuous period? So therefore, this extension of 30 days would actually be backdated to the date of expiration? You may not be ready to answer that, but.
I'm all for July 8th. I don't think the backdating makes any difference. July 8th is fine. We'll just be discussing. You guys will be present in the council chambers. I got some surprises for you in terms of how we're setting it up, but I'm gonna keep those close to the vest until you get here.
Thank you. I'm gonna recognize Councilor Leonard. Councilor Leonard, you're on mute.
Just want to.
You were, sorry. You put yourself back on, Councilor Leonard. We can't, there we go. Try again.
I did a few times.
Okay.
The resolution, the resolve says that we can revoke this at any time. So I don't really realize or understand why the discussion keeps going on.
Councilor Segley.
Thank you. I think this is sometimes where the community and the residents get confused as to who is running the day-to-day operations of the city. It's not the city council, it's the city manager. The mayor does not run the city manager does. The council is a policy-making board. So I don't see the big deal in this either. I don't get what we're doing here. We're splitting hairs, July 8th, July 9th. Who cares? Let's just pick a date and let's go.
Councilor McCallum, do you have a comment?
I'd like to second Councilor Segley's motion. In terms of, like, again, this is, I personally don't want to go back on July 8th to talk about this. Like, let's just make the decision and move forward. Like, there's plenty of things that we need to, like, you know, move ahead. So much more like issues going on that I'm sorry, but I'm not like, this is not like for me, like just something I want to keep coming back to like week by week. Like, it's just not, it doesn't make any sense.
Okay, well, in front of us, we have the motion and seconded to have it expire on July 8th. I will do a roll call vote on that because we have that active motion in front of us. So, Councilor Segley, how do you vote on having this expire July 8th?
Nay.
Councilor Leonard?
Nay.
Councilor McCalla?
Nay.
Councilor McLaughlin?
Nah, aye. Motion.
Councilor Napolitano?
Nay.
Councilor Taylor? You're muted and I could not read your lips, Councilor Taylor.
Nay.
Thank you. Mayor Bova, nay. The motion fails 1-6. So now we have the motion to approve the resolution as written, which would have it expire in 30 days. Councilor Segley, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilor Leonard?
Aye.
Councilor McCalla?
Aye.
Councilor McLaughlin?
Nay.
Councilor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councilor Taylor?
Aye.
The Mayor Bova, aye. The motion passes 6-1.
A resolution regarding medical marijuana facility moratorium.
This resolution was introduced by Councilors Segley and Napolitano with Councilors Leonard and McLaughlin signing on. So I will allow either Councilor Segley or Napolitano to introduce it.
I will introduce it. As I think you all received a much broader version of the resolution that Crispy and the city solicitor provided to justify the a 6-month moratorium on this. And because the public might not have this, I'm going to read the entire resolution, if that's okay.
Just as a point of order, Madam Chair, I think we should vote to receive it because it wasn't in the docket. So.
Okay. Motion to receive.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to receive. Councilor Segley?
Aye.
Councilor Leonard?
Aye.
Councilor McCalla?
Aye.
Councilor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councilor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councilor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. Continue, Councilor Segley.
Thank you. Whereas the city of Newport does not regulate the sale of marijuana by a business through its zoning ordinance as a use other than to treat the sale of the same as a retail use allowed by right in the limited business, general business, waterfront business, and commercial industrial districts. And whereas establishments selling marijuana could locate in Newport if a so-called compassion center dispensing medical marijuana license is issued for the East Bay, Newport County area, or if the use and possession of marijuana is legalized. And whereas the experience of communities such as Fall River, Massachusetts, which have establishments selling or dispensing marijuana, has shown serious issues with respect to traffic and parking, which have adversely impacted surrounding areas and neighborhoods, requiring the need for police intervention to control the same. And whereas because Newport's business zones are mostly built out and adjacent to residential areas, it is probable that any establishment located in Newport selling or dispensing marijuana will have similar traffic and parking issues and similar adverse impacts on surrounding neighborhoods. And whereas the city of Newport's present zoning ordinances does not appear to properly regulate the traffic and parking issues which are expected with such uses, it is reasonably necessary in order to protect the public health, safety, and general welfare to maintain the present status quo of not having such use in the city of Newport in order for the city to further study and plan for the potential for such uses in Newport. Therefore, be it resolved that the City of Newport impose a 6-month moratorium on any retail use which includes the sale or dispensing of marijuana, so that the city can properly determine the extent of the need to update its zoning ordinances to properly plan for such uses. I move approval, but I also, I have an amendment as well.
Well, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Councilor Segley, please introduce the amendment.
Yes, my amendment to the resolve would be to direct this issue to the planning board for review. So the resolve would now say that the City of Newport impose a 6-month moratorium on any retail use which includes a sale or dispensing of marijuana, so that the city can direct the planning board to properly determine the extent of the need to update its zoning ordinances to properly plan for such uses. I make a motion.
Second. Is there discussion on the council? Councilor McCallum.
Yeah. Could I?
Oh, yes, please, Councilor Segley.
I think it's important for us. I mean, I think it's important to be prepared for when the state actually does something about this. If there's a lottery, I think we need to be prepared for this. I also, I think that when we ask the planning board to look at this type of use in the city, that we have to ask them to look at the city as a whole, and not just one area. So so that would be my direction for the planning board.
Thank you, Councilor Segley. Councilor McCall.
So I just wanted to share, I had a conversation with Councilor Segley as well, and I think that this is important. I think that between our conversations, I think the fundamental question is, like, what does this look like, right? And I mean, what types of business operations that will be coming to the city thus far, or the options, so to speak. And I think, you know, doing the due diligence and sending it to the planning board, I think is the right step. I just wanted to ask just a general question. In terms of process, I think I was thinking, okay, for the planning board to bring back the recommendations at the threat of people doing a knee-jerk reaction, should we have a workshop in regards to, like, you know, the findings, so that there's an explanation that kind of happened? And then there's also an opportunity for the community to kind of get educated as well.
This is Mayor Bova. I would say that a workshop would make a lot of sense, especially for the community members. Do you want to keep going, Councilor McCall? I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I don't know if we should put that in an amendment, or, like, I guess I would ask, I'm going to defer to Lynn to see if that was something. Do you want to put that in an amendment, or is that, I don't
think it's necessary. I think that we're going to be doing a workshop anyway. I think the planning board is going to be doing that. All of the meetings are public also. So I don't think it's necessary to put it in the resolution, but if you want to put it in the resolution, I certainly wouldn't vote against it. So we can say that I'd have to go back and just look at how I could reword it. That's all.
Can I ask our city solicitor for his suggestion?
Sure. What I think would happen with this, the planning board's it's going to be referred to the planning board if this passes tonight. The planning board would then come up with suggested ordinances, zoning ordinances, or whatever the recommendations are. I don't know in what form they will be. Could they just be recommendations? Could they actually be drafted ordinances? We really won't know at that point. So I think there's plenty of time to, once that comes in, you're going to get that from the planning board we could probably schedule a workshop at that time.
So it's not necessary.
To amend it.
And I'm literally just asking, like, I'm not sure. So, okay.
Yeah, I think there'll be plenty of time to address that issue. I don't see a need to amend the resolution for that.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilor McCalla. Councilor Taylor?
Yes, I want to move to table this. I haven't been able to see the language that came from Mr. Bean. I've been looking through emails from Bean, emails from Dunn. I actually, and I have also looked through my, the Bean memos that I have stored. So if someone can either show us the language that you want us to vote on.
I sent it to you today, and it was sent by Carlos the other day.
Well, and is the city clerk able to display it on the screen for us?
I am not, but my co-host, Mr. Shevlin, should be able to do that.
Mr. Shevlin, can you display the resolution? Mr. Shevlin, are you still with us?
Yes, I unfortunately don't have that language.
Okay. Well, why don't we can get that to you, Mr. Shevlin, and then you would be able to display it. And then while we do that, I will just give the floor to Councilor McLaughlin.
Let me just say, I'm now looking at everything from Alan. Okay. All right. Thank you.
You see it?
I do.
Okay. Councilor McLaughlin? You're on mute, Councilor McLaughlin.
I sound better when I'm muted. This is Councilor McLaughlin. We're talking about a 6-month moratorium. I just want to introduce into the discussion that one of the potential outcomes is that the city of Newport decides they do not want any marijuana retail shops in their city. And I think that's something that I want to make sure that that's on the table.
Well, could I just say that I think that's where it says that the city can properly determine the extent of the need. So I think that's already in the resolve.
I just wanted to make sure that that was articulated, explicitly tonight, because that may be the right answer. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Does the city manager want to comment?
Oh, I was just asked to relay to the council that Kate Leonard had to sign off. She wasn't feeling well, so she signed off.
Okay, thank you.
There it is.
Thank you, Mr. Shevlin. So now we have it displayed on the screen, which is now the full council and members of the public can review. And I would like to ask if there are any members of the public who would like to be heard or comment on this issue. And if you are on your phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. And if you're in the Zoom app, you can just click raise hand. I would like to say, I thank Councilors Segley and Napolitano for submitting this. I think it's good to give ourselves the opportunity to make an informed decision for the city, especially because we know that there's a lot of movement at the state level regarding this, and we want to make sure that we know exactly what impact something like this would have in the city. And I thank you also for the amendment forwarding it to the planning board, and because I know that my concern was that any recommendations that we had would end up only showing one area of the city as a viable option. And that's not something that I think any of us want to have happen. I don't want to have something like a medical marijuana facility be shoved into the north end and have it further give the impression that it's only the north end is where we put things that we don't really want. So I'm glad that we are taking the time to really study this and get good information on potential impacts and make an informed decision. Is there any further discussion on the council? Hearing none, I will do a roll call vote. Councillor Segley?
Aye.
Councillor McCalla?
Aye.
Councillor McLaughlin?
This is for the amendment or for the main resolution?
For the resolution amended, right?
Yeah, we already voted on the amendment, right,
Okay.
Madam Clerk?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Aye.
Yeah, so thank you, Councillor McLaughlin. Councillor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councillor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion passes 6-0.
Second reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 17, Section 17.04.050 entitled General Requirements, Section 17.08.010 entitled Definitions, and Section 17.100.130 entitled Home Occupations.
Thank you. I move passage of these ordinance amendments on second reading.
Second.
Thank you. And I would like to open it up to members of the public. And this is amending the ordinances regarding essentially short-term rentals. And I know that we have a member of the planning board who has her hand up. Melissa Padavina, can you please identify yourself with your name and address for the record?
Yes, Melissa Padavina, 8 Brunton Road here in Newport, and I'm appearing tonight as a representative to represent the City of Newport Planning Board. We just wanted to point out that in our letter to council from March 3rd, that there are 3 action items for further study that the board is requesting council be assigned back to the short-term rentals investigatory group. What we'd like to do is take the lead on studying those further and coordinate with zoning and the city solicitor's office. Those 3 items are number 1, the review of the blank visitor passes as provided in section 10.32.040. The second item, the study of extending transient guest facilities to limited business zones via special use permit. And the third item, a study of a potential renewal process for special use permits issued for guest houses in residential zones. And that, if you can recall, was in connection to some issues we've had where when we issued the special use permits in residential zones, they're tied to the land rather than the owner, so they don't, it's a permanent change. And that is our request. I thank you, Mayor and council members.
Thank you, Ms. Padavina. Is there any discussion on the council? Hearing none, I will do the roll call vote. Councillor Segley?
Aye.
Councillor McCalla?
Aye.
Councillor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councillor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councillor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion passes on second reading.
First reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 5.57 entitled Mobile Food Establishments to amend Section 5.57.040 entitled Restrictions on Permits.
This is amendment to the mobile food establishment ordinance. I move passage.
Second.
There is a motion and a second, and I would like to recognize Mr. Galvin, Assistant City Solicitor.
This is Gerard Galvin. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to pass along to the council that around 6 o'clock tonight, I received a request from Turner Scott that this matter be continued. He is still waiting on some input from his client. Mr. Scott was unable to attend the meeting tonight. I let him know that I would pass that message along to you.
Thank you, Mr. Galvin. Is there any discussion on the council?
Motion to continue.
Second.
There is a motion and a second to continue. I will hold the roll call vote. Councilor Segley?
Aye.
Councilor McCalla?
Aye.
Councilor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councilor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councilor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion passes.
Communication from the Energy and Environment Commission regarding community choice aggregation programming.
I move that we receive this communication.
Second, Councilor Taylor.
Motion and a second to receive. I know that we should have some folks from the Energy and Environment Commission on the line. Evan Ridley, Lola Herrera, and Sean O'Connor, if we could recognize them. Lola, would you be able to begin the introduction as the chair of the Energy and Environment Commission?
Yes. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. I'm Lola Herrera Jimenez, 59 Bedlow. I'm the chair, former chair as last Monday of the Newport Energy and Environmental Commission, and I want to introduce you Evan Ridley, who is now the chair of the commission, and Sean O'Connor, secretary. They are going to do a presentation about this one concept that we want to inform all the councilors. This new concept is named community choice aggregation. I just want to remember that as a commission, we advise the city council and educate the public on energy efficiency and renewable energy and the environment to foster a more sustainable community. And I just want also to remember us that in the comprehensive land use plan of 2017, energy is defined closely tied to both the environment and economic activity. Also, it is the aim of the city of Newport to conserve energy, use energy efficiently, and to explore renewable resources and energy production. Also, to say that they are targeting a 20% reduction in energy consumption, and this goal will work in tandem with the goal of increasing renewable energy use in municipal facilities by 20% of this year, which is kind of difficult. And now I just want to present Sean and Evan that they explain this concept to the council, and we continue increasing. We explain this concept to the councilors, and we can advance this concept in the future months. Thank you.
Thank you. And I recognize Mr. O'Connor and Mr. Ridley.
Thank you, Mayor Bova, and members of the council. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yes.
And Madam Clerk, I believe that we were able to share some slides in advance of this communication. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to see those on the screen collectively.
Yes, I believe my co-host is going to take care of that.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Those should be up momentarily. Here we are.
Great, so I can see them now. My co-host here, Sean O'Connor, and I will do our part to move through these slides promptly and provide you with some background. As Lola mentioned, in the summer of 2019, our commission has explored community choice aggregation with a number of parties, including the Aquidneck Island Planning Commission, the Aquidneck Island Climate Caucus, the Green Energy Consumers Alliance, and the Good Energy Company. When we say community choice aggregation programming, we talk about any program that would work to aggregate the buying power of individual customers within Newport's jurisdiction in order to secure supply contracts at a competitive rate that would also allow for a larger spectrum of renewable energy sources to be included in the consumption of energy by citizens and businesses here in the city, particularly regional and local sources of renewable energy. These programs are valuable in a sense because they give obviously that rate stabilization and bargaining power, but they also allow us to take the really important step to invest in regional and local renewable energy projects. And that's something that obviously has sustainability impacts, but also potential economic impacts for the city as well. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, the overarching goal of a program like this is to provide the community with more control over the cost of their power as well as the source of that power by aggregating purchasing power as a city or as part of a broader statewide collective. We have an upper hand when navigating the utility marketplace, especially at times such as now when rates are lower than they might be historically. And in addition to that stabilization, as I mentioned, you get the ability to support local renewable sources and expand renewable consumption. It's important to note that one thing that does not change is the default supply and oversight of the grid infrastructure. Those duties are retained by National Grid in this case. And I would also make a point to note that participation in any kind of program surrounding community choice aggregation is not mandatory. If a citizen or a business chose to opt out, they could do so and continue to receive their energy at the market rate and the market spectrum. And in contrast to that, citizens or businesses could also go above and beyond sort of the initial terms of that contract to increase their renewable energy consumption if they chose to do so. Next slide, I'll pass over to Sean O'Connor.
Hello, thank you to the council for receiving our communication. And this slide is just some of the steps that are involved with implementing community choice aggregation in our community. And I just want to call out here that the first step is for city council to consider and hopefully pass a resolution calling for an aggregation plan. And for reasons we'll get into in a moment, that would ideally happen very soon. And the good news is we have a draft resolution that's basically a template that can be customized to our city that has been used in Providence and Central Falls and other communities across our state. And in this kind of draft resolution, or a person or a department gets assigned to work on creating the plan. We've had some initial conversations with the planning department and the board the planning department as the place where that plan would come together. And I thank Peter Friedrichs for joining us tonight from the department. And the creation of the plan that is in step 2 there. So just a reminder, the resolution is just calling for the creation of a plan. And then you can see step 3, which is a time when we would have a public hearing, approval for a plan from the city council. It's kind of a 2-part process. And everything highlighted in yellow, we just wanted to call out that those steps would be worked on by the planning department in tandem with a consultant that would be selected to kind of work us through the process and support from our commission. And Good Energy is the leading consultant in Mass and Rhode Island, helping communities with their plans. And Providence selected Good Energy through a competitive bidding process, and we can tap into their work to access the bids and make that step a bit easier for our town. And just to be clear, when we hear consultant, I want to say Newport doesn't pay for a consultant. Their fees are worked into some energy buying agreements down the road. Next slide, please. Once we get to those later steps, 7 and 8, after the plan gets created and then approved by the council with a public hearing, there's significant education for our residents and businesses on what this is all about. And ultimately, there would be opportunities for opt-out for anyone before the program begins or anytime during without penalty. Evan mentioned National Grid continues to handle billing and maintenance, and it doesn't affect anything like net metering or low-income discount rates. Next slide, please. I just wanted to show this next graphic briefly, and I draw your attention to the right side, which points out that National Grid is already mandated in our state to have 17.5% renewables in their energy mix, and that increases something like 1 or 1.5% each year. And the left side shows you that when implemented, a standard community choice aggregation product would essentially be that plus something like 10%. And 10% is a standard option a lot of communities use, as it's a safe zone where savings is still easily achieved. And customers in Newport would have the opportunity to opt out or opt up, and those details would be worked out in the planning process once we're authorized to do so. So I'm going to hand it back to Evan.
Thanks, Sean. Next slide, please. Before I address this slide, I just want to make note of an error that we included here. Obviously, where it's listed under Newport, this is not a hearing on a resolution, but rather an introduction of the topic through our communication. So please excuse that typo. But to give you perspective on where some of the other communities in Rhode Island are, there's been a real wave of momentum in the last year or so that was really sparked by the work that was done by the Providence Sustainability and Environmental Council, their equivalent of the NEEC in Providence, that was able to work with the council to develop a draft resolution. That resolution was then picked up and used as a template by Central Falls. And in succession, we've seen a number of towns, including Barrington, South Kingstown, and now Portsmouth, begin to make commitments to pass resolutions in their councils and begin developing those plans with the intention of taking part in that broader buying group with Providence. We've heard about the benefits in terms of the economic perspective and having a bigger bargaining group and working quickly to be a part of that group. One of the other things that we've learned in perspective, looking at the timeline ahead for the rest of the year and moving with alacrity, is considering the process that would move forward in getting a plan from the city of Newport approved by the state's Public Utility Commission. And there's a general understanding that as time moves on and as we get into the fall, the workload for that commission is going to increase significantly, and we could be looking at a significant hold time on approval of a plan if Newport were to get it in a later fashion. Next slide, please. So in working with other communities, as I mentioned, there is that bulk buying power. Providence has been a great source of support in terms of looking at how a resolution can function and how a resolution might be developed and customized and tailored more to reflect the goals that Lolo mentioned that are included in the comprehensive plan. Next slide, please. And this is just an example of some rates over time in Somerville, Massachusetts has had broad success with their program. As you can see, the commitments to renewable energy within their spectrum increased over time. So that did have some impact on the rates themselves. Another example of this trend is Brookline, Massachusetts, where there's been significant community buy-in that has prompted the increase of that renewable energy consumption through their successive contract negotiations as part of those programs. So you can see that once these things get up and running, in some cases when there are supportive market conditions, that when you have that community buy-in, there's a real ability to expand and go above and beyond even some of the state goals when it comes to renewable energy consumption. Next slide, please.
I will just kind of take us through the last couple here. And I just want to say our commission has been doing a lot of learning and advocating for this. And we've looped in the planning department and the planning board, and they've expressed some initial enthusiasm for the idea. I know our city planner, Peter, may be interested in piping in a moment. And I also just wanted to acknowledge the Green Consumer Energy Alliance, a nonprofit based here in Rhode Island. I believe Priscilla De La Cruz is sort of joining us today, and they've been a huge source of education and advocacy for us, as well as Good Energy, which is really the leading consultant in the region that's helping communities develop these CCA plans. So next slide. And with this, I just wanted to show on the left, I love this graphic because it shows the per account savings that customers, residents, businesses in a bunch of Massachusetts communities have achieved once they implemented these programs. So you can see, something like Sudbury with almost $400. That's sort of cumulative from the time when they started the plan. And then just to the right of that, I wanted to basically show this or possible piece of language we may use in the resolution is saying that savings can be passed on to well, sorry, let me put it this way. Often these plans are implemented and savings are passed on to the customer, the resident, the business. We may consider running it a different way where savings are recouped and reinvested by the city for additional green energy generation. And I just wanted to highlight that because I think there's some interesting and exciting options for us to consider. The details of that are worked out in the planning process after an initial resolution. So I just want to emphasize that as well. And then finally, our next steps, of course, if anyone has questions or comments tonight, I also just want to acknowledge the generosity of Priscilla De La Cruz through the Green Consumer Energy Alliance, who's happy to do any one-on-one or additional group education around the concept, as we are also as commissioners. And we hope that we can find a way to introduce a resolution soon at an upcoming council meeting where we can call for the development of an aggregation plan. So thank you again for receiving this communication. I mentioned Peter Friedrichs may be interested to speak, but you can let us know what works.
Thank you, Sean and Evan. I appreciate you giving this presentation to all of us. Is there any discussion on the council or any questions from the council? Councilor Taylor?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I appreciate this. I've been exposed to it before, and I think this is an excellent idea for the city to explore. I did speak with Councilor Napolitano today, who had a very good suggestion, and I wanted to check with the city manager on this, if you don't mind. Is the League of Cities and Towns coordinating municipalities to do something like this?
No, not at all. That's a whole separate aggregation plan. So there is something that I was intrigued by, the representation that I may have misheard it, that some of the savings can flow through other and be used for other green energy type projects, but that's something I can talk through. But Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns has their own aggregation plan of municipalities. We're a member of it, but that's for governments. This is, as I understand it, a residential / business benefit in terms of aggregation.
Thank you. And I was also intrigued when Sean and/or Evan, I forget which one, mentioned the fact that Providence, before hiring good energy, green energy, good energy, they had put out, it sounds like, an RFP to compare bids.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's right. And those RFP and bids are available to us to just consider and hopefully expedite a process of selecting a consultant.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor McCalla?
Yep, Angela McCalla. I just wanted to say thank you to our Energy and Environments Commission. I certainly also too, serving as one of the council liaisons. I mean, I really felt really included in the process. And, you know, we've certainly had so much dialogue on this, and I too support this initiative. I was curious, however, to just weigh in. So I know that you guys had mentioned about the collaboration between the planning board, and understanding that Peter's here. I'd like some input from you, Peter.
Okay, thank you, Councilor. So the department has been following the work of the Energy and Environment Commission since last fall, and it does seem like a great opportunity. I think I'm here because I have a personal interest in this, and also I have some experience with similar things similar to this in Central Falls and in college. So the Director Reynolds, has authorized me to be here today on the department's behalf. And looking at the draft resolution, I don't know if it's been forwarded to the councilors yet, but as Sean explained in his presentation, it does put some work on the department. I do think it's a manageable amount of work, and a consultant will be very helpful in getting that work done. So I think it's a good opportunity for the city that the department is happy to support.
Thank you, Mr. Friedrichs. I noticed that we did have someone from the public with their hand raised. Could we recognize them? Can you please introduce yourself with your name and address for the record?
Yes, hello. Eric Martin, 9 Tyler Street.
Go ahead, Mr. Martin.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Bova, the council, and city staff for taking the time to hear about CCA. And also thanks to Lola, Evan, and Sean at the Newport Energy and Environment Commission for taking the time to advocate for a program that'll really benefit the residents of Newport in a compelling way. And just to add some context, you know, on an electricity bill, there's really 2 sections, both the transmission section and the section where you're paying for energy. And this will just affect the energy portion of the electricity bill. I'm sure many people on the call have had individuals come to their houses offering to switch their energy service from National Grid to some other energy supplier. And this will just be an additional option for the residents of Newport to consider in adding renewables to the blend of electricity that they're actually consuming in their home. It definitely will be stabilizing prices by increasing the percentage of renewables and save Newporters money over the long term. You know, in the past, I think I've heard a fair bit about concerns of renewable energy projects affecting the historic nature of Newport. And this is really a great way to move that renewable energy production to large projects that would not be in Newport or possibly not even on Aquidneck Island while achieving the same goal. I'm really appreciate that this is part of the discussion because Newport being an ocean town with increased exposure to the effects of climate change, I really think community choice aggregation is going to help Newport lead in sustainability. And also, right, beyond all those benefits, this is, as Sean was saying, an opt-in program. And so Newport residents are really being given additional choices. So I just want to voice my support and encourage the City Council to continue the study of community choice aggregation. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the council? Councilor Taylor?
I just didn't want to let this opportunity go by to thank Lola Herrera for her fabulous work on the Energy and Environment Commission. The news has just come out that she's going to be taking a year in the Netherlands. I hope I'm not announcing that prematurely, Lola, but I just wanted to express the appreciation of the council for the fabulous work that you've done.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, if there's no further discussion, thank you to all the members from the EEC that came and presented this. I will do a roll call vote. Councilor Segley.
Aye.
Councilor McCalla.
Aye.
Councilor McLaughlin.
Aye.
Councilor Napolitano.
Aye.
Councilor Taylor.
Aye.
Mayor Bova. Aye. The motion passes.
Recommendations on roadway closures regarding resolution 2020-40.
I move receipt on this communication from the city manager. There is a motion and a second, and I would like to say, first of all, that this is in response to a resolution that the council passed in May, and I know that there has been some action on the planning board also discussing this, and we again have Melissa Padavina from the planning board here to give us some info on what they've been discussing and working on. Melissa, please go ahead.
Apologies, I was being promoted. Thank you again, Honorable Mayor Bova and members of the City Council for this opportunity to speak on behalf of the city's planning board. Melissa Padavina, 8 Brenton Road, for the record. Your resolution from May 27th of this year addressing a study regarding the benefits and impacts of closing streets to accommodate the need for more public space for social distancing prompted the planning board to study different methods to respond to COVID-19, how we can prepare for a second wave of infections, as well as incorporating pandemics into the city's hazard mitigation plan. For the short term, we looked specifically at strategies related to your resolution on road closures, with the goal of continuing and increasing economic activity as well as sustaining community well-being. Ultimately, what we want to do is position Newport to thrive in a pandemic environment. The planning board has worked on developing an initial set of concepts that we believe could help the city accommodate social distancing while supporting merchants to continue doing business. To do this, we looked at successful strategies used by cities like Burlington, Vermont, Oakland, California, Boston, Providence, and we looked at them, vetting them in the local context to determine, if any of these could be reasonably deployed in the city of Newport. We understand that there isn't one solution that is going to balance public acceptance and revenue neutrality. What we found were the most effective and accepted programs that we reviewed use strategies to slow and limit traffic. And then the programs that were successful actually closing the street to traffic altogether, they did that on timetables, schedules that were the most beneficial for economic activity and the least disruptive to circulation. So 4 concepts that we offer to the council for consideration are shared streets, that is slowing traffic on the streets, local traffic only type of scenario. So slowing traffic on the streets for increased pedestrian and bicyclist activity, providing about 10 feet of space on the street from parking spaces or for parking space and sidewalk use. The second concept, open streets, would be shutting down the streets on strict timetables. And that would allow cafes and other commercial activities to spill out into the street space. It would also promote safe social distancing because that added space would be there. And thank you. I did send Mr. Shevlin a map that we drafted, which is, I don't know if you need to receive this and our letter as a communication.
I move that we receive.
Is there a second? Motion and a second. I will do the roll call vote on receipt. Councilor Segley?
Aye.
Councilor McCalla?
Aye.
Councilor McLaughlin?
Oh, where am I? Am I? Oh.
We can hear you.
I'm not sure what we're receiving. I'm looking at one graph, but what else are we receiving?
We have a letter that corresponds with basically the statement I'm giving to you this evening.
And will this be will this be sent to us? Because I don't think that we've actually gotten it.
Yes, this will be sent to you.
Okay.
I'm not sure why we're voting to receive something we don't have.
I think so that it can be displayed.
In particular, the map that's on the screen.
I'll vote, but it would be better if we would have materials before us before we start our meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McLaughlin. Councilor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councilor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion passes. Please continue, Ms. Padavino.
Thank you very much, and my apologies that it wasn't there sooner. The third, in addition to shared streets and open streets options, we also included some suggestions for opportunities for what we call nodes. Those would be drop-off, pickup locations for ride share type services. And then the last strategy we suggest are some public-private partnerships to offset lost parking revenues. We really think there are some possibilities for even greater revenue generation if we explore some imaginative strategies, using public-private partnerships and possibly technology too. So this up on the screen that you can see is a map that we've developed. These are ideas. We are essentially, we're talking about what we're suggesting to the council is a phased approach of implementing pilot programs that could be initiated with staff support. And our approach builds specifically on the success of what the city manager has implemented in short order on Broadway. We find that a very successful example of what can be done. And we do believe there are places where it could be expanded. We believe it could be even expanded on Broadway and then built out into other areas of the city. So this map is really just an example. It's some ideas. It's our thoughts on where and how things could happen. Obviously, this would need vetting by the city's professional staff, traffic engineers, and such. So this is our offering to you for consideration.
Well, thank you, Ms. Padavina. I really appreciate this info from the planning board and the work that you all put in. And I think that I would love for us to consider it and be able to put some of it in motion. Like you said, the city manager has been working really hard, especially in the Broadway area, but really all over the city to find good ways to help our businesses expand and kind of work around some of the challenges that have come with COVID. So I think that the planning board and him working together, we should see some great things. So I appreciate you guys bringing this to us. And is there discussion on the council or any questions that the council has for Ms. Padavina? I do believe that we have some members of the public that would like to be heard on this. Can you?
Oh, I'm muted.
Yep. Can you identify yourself with your name and address for the record?
Hi, this is Margaret Mulholland again from 13 Seaview Avenue in Newport. I called in earlier. I was trying to get on I don't know what happened. I think the food truck situation got hijacked by Mr. Scott.
It just was continued. Yes, because he is the attorney for the food truck that would be most affected by the change in the ordinance. So, and given that him and his staff was not, or someone from the food truck were not able to be on the line, they requested a continuance, which we agreed to.
You know that they rolled out a second food truck this week with lobster rolls and taco. What's coming next?
I appreciate your concern, and I ask that you can email the council with your concern as well, because we will hear this item, but given the request to continue by one of the stakeholders in the community, we agreed to the continuance, which is standard practice just to make sure that people are allowed to be heard. But it will be on the July 8th council meeting, and we will be able to hear you then as well.
Because I tried to call in your original meeting and I was told I was not allowed to speak, spectator only, which is very frustrating for me because I have a serious concern about this. It's a historical area. It is not the place for food trucks.
The way that it works is that we have to allow individuals to speak so that members of the public are automatically muted until we recognize them, so that there isn't a lot of background noise during the meetings.
Okay, I was muted again, but thank you. I will tune in again on July 8th.
Thank you very much.
It was just very frustrating that it was slipped through so quickly. I didn't blink an eye, and that was off the docket. So it's upsetting to me.
I apologize, but like I said, we will discuss it at a later date.
Okay, very good. Thank you for your time. Yeah, bye now.
Is there any discussion on the council on the communication from the city manager and the presentation from Ms. Padavina? Councilor McLaughlin. You're on mute, Councilor McLaughlin.
I just want to clarify that is the city manager going to take the recommendations from the planning board and come back with us with actual recommendations? This football seems to be just being passed around, and we may be passing up opportunities to do something. So I'd like to know where we're going next.
Well, I just saw the planning board's submission at the same time you saw it this evening. So I'm more than happy to meet with the planning board per your charge, the council's charge, to go over some of these things. I'm not going to say that I understood completely what was being presented by the planning board, but it seems that there's a couple of things going on here. The work that the city administration did in short order with a number of these places, for example, on Broadway, it was simply triage. The planning board has a much broader spectrum here. I think that they're looking at in terms of the future of a number of how we wish to proceed. And actually, Justin, you and I have had this conversation just this week as to the look and the feel of some of these places and what the future may hold. I'm paraphrasing. So I'm going to work with the planning board. I'd like to understand the submission a little bit more and the shared spaces and the shared roads that you were referring to. I was trying to follow it, and I think I understand some of it, but some of it I don't understand. I need to sit down with the planning board and the staff to understand it better. And then if you guys wish something a little broader to come back to you, then sure, absolutely. It's not going to happen this evening, obviously, or by July 8th. I can tell you that. But I think I think there's some work to do, and I think what the planning board showed was very creative.
I would suggest that we put what they presented to us tonight on our next docket and continue this conversation, because as long as we're talking, we're working towards something.
Sure.
Thank you.
And I would ask that rather than just having it verbatim on the docket from what was presented this evening. Also, like your thoughts, city manager, and ideas on how it could be implemented, like actually actionable ideas.
Yeah, and I'll just make one point. Ultimately, we keep the conversation going, but the conversation, and at least I would advise, needs to be broadened with the business community in mind. Where you showed Melissa, where you showed the routes are all through the business community, obviously. So, but I think it's a good idea that we just continue the conversation.
I see that Ms. Padavina wants to be recognized, but I do want to recognize Councilor Taylor first because she's had her hand up, but then I will recognize you, Ms. Padavina.
I will try to be quick. Joe, I just want to express appreciation for how you moved so quickly to get the restaurants their expanded space on Broadway, and how natural that seems. It feels like it's always been that way. I wish we could do something prettier than the orange plastic barricades, but that, all things in time. And I appreciate as well how quickly you produced your recommendations here. You were saying that you were working under time constraints, and I understand that with those time constraints, it's not that easy to have broad-based public input. And I would urge that if we're putting it back on the docket for July 8th, that a real effort be made. And I know, Joe, this probably falls on you. Perhaps the planning board has a means by which they could do this, but to seek some input from the business community that would be the abutters and the people that would be so highly impacted. Thank you.
Ms. Padavina, did you want to comment?
Yes, we did, again, this was a quick turnaround for us. We did attempt to hold 3 opportunities to hear from the business communities. And we unfortunately weren't successful in doing that in those specific forums. So absolutely with the city manager and Councilor Taylor, we really want to bring this discussion into the public forum.
Thank you. Is there, Madam Clerk?
Yes, can I just ask that Ms. Padavina sends me the documentations that she had? I did not receive that.
Yeah, I will send them.
Thank you.
Right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilor Taylor, did you have another comment?
Very quickly. I appreciate Joe's concern about the loss of revenue that would be one of the results of closing streets and losing parking meters, and any effort that could be done by the planning board to talk about how that could be offset. I mean, I've been wondering, I just figured that the goal is to allow restaurants to serve close to the same number of patrons that they have had in previous seasons, and so that would help with the food and beverage tax. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no further discussion on the council, I will do a roll call vote. Councilor Sedgley?
Aye.
Councilor McCalla?
Aye.
Councilor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councilor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councilor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion passes.
Memorandum from the city manager regarding update on the North End Urban Plan project.
I move passage. I move receipt.
Second, Councilor Taylor.
Thank you. I would like to open the floor to the planning director, Ms. Reynolds, so that she can discuss this communication.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I'm happy to be here talking about the North End Urban Plan again. Tonight, I'd like to give you an update on the plan process to date and look at the schedule as the consultants begin to move forward again. I've submitted a timeline and a background memo. I just wanted to go through that, and at the end, if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. The plan started at the end of January, on January 21st, 2020. We had an aggressive schedule of 16 weeks to create a substantially completed plan for the North End. The plan schedule was divided into 3 different phases. Phase 1 was called Discover, and it was basically a research phase. It set the stage for future public engagement by conducting research of existing plans and documents and beginning preliminary public outreach. This phase was completed on time within 4 weeks, and we were on schedule at this point. In February, phase 2, the dialogue phase, started, and this phase was intended to broaden the discussions to the general public, and it gathered input from city residents and stakeholders by holding numerous small-scale meetings and a community-wide public forum. On February 25th, the first steering committee meeting was held, and on the 26th, the first of 2 proposed public forums was held at the Met School. In March, phase 2 continued. As consultants began to synthesize the information learned from the community, a second steering committee meeting was held for March 17th, and the last planned public forum was scheduled the following day on March 18th. At this point, due to the impacts of the pandemic, these meetings were canceled just days before they were scheduled to occur. At that point, at the following council meeting, which happened on April 8th, 2020, the City Council approved a 60-day suspension of the development of the North End Urban Plan from April 8th to June 8th. And this was done in the hopes that during that time, we would be able to have normal public meetings again and in-person public meetings, but as we know, that's not the case. So public forum number 2 was reworked and moved from an in-person public meeting to an online survey format. And this used the existing project website called Co-Urbanize. The online survey remained active until May 18th, And it closed at that time so we could allow the consultants time to review and analyze the data prior to the end of the suspension period on June 8th. On May 17th, we sent out a postcard mailer to residents who may not have access to technology in their home, and they were asked to contact the planning department for a paper version of the survey so that they could participate in the survey results. During the suspension period, there were still some things happening. The consultant continued to monitor the online survey and prepared a draft of a form-based zoning code for the study area. The preparation of this code was part of the original contract. There was no extra price, and we did have time to do this now during the suspension period. This form-based code is in addition to the code that was prepared by the zoning working group, which is currently under consideration by the City Council and the Planning Board. From July 8th, the plan began again. It restarted on June 8th with a new substantial completion date of July 8th, 2020. And the final draft of the consultant's form-based code is nearing completion. On June 16th, last Monday or Tuesday, I think it was, a virtual steering committee meeting was held to review the progress of the plan to date and the proposed next steps. And the next steps were outlined as follows. In regards to the plan, the draft plan will be completed and submitted to the planning board approximately on July 8th. There will be at least one public hearing and a planning board review and a recommendation to the City Council, at least another public hearing, and hopefully an adoption of the plan by the City Council. We are waiting for the draft form-based code to be submitted. That will be reviewed by staff to ensure compliance with the state enabling legislation and the comprehensive plan. And I just want everybody to know that there's a recording of the steering committee meeting. It's available for viewing, and all the materials from the meeting will be made available on the Co-Urbanize site. I think it may be live now, but I'll double check. And also the survey results that were taken will be also updated on that site. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have about the plan or the process.
Thank you, Ms. Reynolds. Councilor McCallum?
Yep, Angela McCalla. So I know that, so currently right now it sounds like Code Studio, who has, it sounds like there's a completed version of the form-based coding. Is that going to be allowed? I know that it's going to go in through the planning board in the form of public hearings, but is there an opportunity with MBBJ to do some type of, again, some type of meeting for folks to kind of understand it a little bit more?
We definitely understand that it's a new concept for the city. It's very different than what we're used to for zoning. We're going to start with looking at the product and on a staff level and seeing if this is something that actually comports with state law. And we're going to make sure that we don't need to make any changes to it due to that. And that we certainly know that as part of the review process, there will be numerous public hearings and meetings so that we can talk about the form-based code and we can talk about the form-based code in its difference to the traditional code. They're not planned right now but I do expect there to be opportunities for public comment.
So understanding that the planning board has a certain way of actually, communicating some of these results, I think it might be beneficial for the community to actually have an open dialogue. And I also am thinking too, they were supposed to have a second meeting, but unfortunately because of COVID, unfortunately that opportunity was kind of missed. So I'm wondering, since we already paid in the contract, can we get, is NBBJ open to doing one last public engagement in which it's open, inclusive, and people can just kind of ask, whatever questions that they want? I know that they can.
But we definitely have had conversations like that. We want to make sure that people know that they're included in the process. And it's been something that at our regularly scheduled meetings, we have talked about that. Obviously, it would still most likely be a virtual platform that we would have to do this on if we're talking about a 4-week period to introduce that. So I definitely will have a conversation about that. I'm happy to talk to you about opportunities and how we could maybe make something like that happen.
Great, thanks.
Mr. Reynolds, I just wanted to ask about the timeline that you outlaid for the next 4 weeks. So the plan would be submitted to the planning board on July 8th, and then the planning board would review it, and then it would come to the council, and similar timeline for zoning. And I obviously recognize that there are a lot of outside elements that can affect that timeline, but can you just give us an estimate on when you think both the plan and the zoning would be able to be in front of the council for a vote?
I hesitate to do that because one of the important components is going to be public outreach and public hearings. There's a public hearing required for the planning board, at least one. It may take more than one public hearing depending on the amount of public input that we're going to receive, and the same thing at the city council level. So I can promise that we will work as quickly as we can to get this approved, but I want to make sure that it's done with the amount of public input necessary.
Well, I mean, even that answer helps because I wasn't, it helps put it into perspective and into a larger picture on what the timeline for each of the steps really can be, so that I can better understand overall what the timeline can be. So thank you. Is there any further discussion on the council? Hearing none, I will call a roll call vote. Councilor Segley, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilor McCalla?
Aye.
Councilor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councilor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councilor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Action number 5930.
This item is a award of bid for water treatment chemicals, and it would be in the not to exceed amount, or estimated for $761,782. I move passage.
Second.
Is there any discussion on the council? Hearing none, I will call the vote. Councilor Segley?
Aye. Aye.
Councilor McCalla?
Aye.
Councilor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councilor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councilor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion passes.
Action number 5931.
This item is for changes to the Easton's Beach parking lot and changes to the ordinance that will allow for the installation of the self-pay parking, and the it would enforce compliance of vehicle parking and utilizing the self-pay parking equipment. I move passage.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the council? Councilor McLaughlin?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. This is Councilor McLaughlin. I just have two questions. In section C, it says that we're going to have seasonal beach sticker decals for both residents and non-residents, but are we going to sell non-resident stickers this year?
No,
So when we pass this ordinance, how will we not comply with it? But that's because the
well, that wasn't it's not the intent. The intent of this is an enforcement mechanism. We don't sell it, doesn't mean we're not complying. But the intent here is because we need an enforcement mechanism because we got the new devices down there. That's all.
But it could raise an expectation that we're going to do something that we're not going to do. The other question I had is that parking of vehicles in excess of 20 feet is prohibited, but we allow buses to park there. So I just want to know how we balance out the buses we allow for $80 on a weekend and the fact that nothing more than 20 feet can park.
I don't know the answer to that question. I'll have to ask the staff what the answer to that is.
This gets read twice.
Yes.
Yes, it will need to
No.
be read twice. It's
Just
an ordinance change.
get read twice.
It
Yeah,
will have to. This is the first reading. It's
Yeah.
an ordinance change.
yeah, that's right.
I had a question as well. And because I couldn't remember if I was remembering this correctly, that we previously had parking free after a certain time, even during the summer at Easton's Beach.
That's still the case.
It is still the case? Okay. What time is it now?
But right now, we've extended it to any time. Right now, it's after 5. We're going to 6 o'clock. It's after 5 now.
And this would change it to after 9?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call a vote. Councilor Stegley, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilor McCalla?
Aye.
Councilor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councilor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councilor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion passes. I move that we adjourn as council and reconvene as Board of License Commissioners.
Second.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Councilor Stegley, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilor McCalla?
Aye.
Councilor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councilor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councilor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion passes.
A public hearing on the application of JRL Holdings LLC, 8 West Marlborough Street, holder of a Class BL alcoholic beverage license to transfer ownership and location to Beverage Newport Shipyard LLC, DBA Bell's Cafe, 1 Washington Street, designated as the area included in the indoor seating and outdoor seating as set forth on that certain survey prepared by Ravi Engineering and Land Surveying PC, dated July 22nd, 2019.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone from the public that would like to be heard? Can the person with the phone number ending in 6433 please identify yourself with your name and address for the record?
Hi, Pauline Wallace, 33 Marsh Street. I assume, I don't know your parliamentary procedure, but I assume the same assurances that were given with regard to the beer and wine license in the previous meeting would apply here.
Yes, they do.
Excellent. That's it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to be heard? There is someone with the last 4 9623. Could you please mute yourself? Can we mute this person? Thank you. If there's no one else from the public that would like to be heard, I move that we close the public hearing and approve.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the council? Hearing none, I will do the roll call vote. Councilor Stegley?
Aye.
Councilor McCalla?
Aye.
Councilor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councilor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councilor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion passes.
A public hearing on the application of Tri Group LLC, DBA Newport Blues Cafe, 286 Thames Street, first and second floors, for restrictions on file in the city clerk's office, holder of a Class BV alcoholic beverage license to transfer ownership to Kinsley's LTD, Brian Foley, 100%, DBA Newport Blues Cafe, for the same premises.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone from the public that would like to be heard? Hearing none, I move that we close the public hearing and approve.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the council? Hearing none, I will go through the roll call vote. Councilor Stegley?
Aye.
Councilor McCalla?
Aye.
Councilor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councilor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councilor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion passes.
A public hearing on the application of Newport Wine Cellar LLC, DBA Newport Wine Cellar, 11 Memorial Boulevard, holder of a Class A alcoholic beverage license to transfer the location to 5 Merton Road.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone from the public that would like to be heard? Hearing none, I move that we close the public hearing and approve.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the council? Hearing none, I will go through the roll call vote. Councilor Segley?
Aye.
Councilor McCalla?
Aye.
Councilor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councilor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councilor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion passes.
Communication from Peter Regan Esquire on behalf of L&B Associates LLC DBA Backyard Patio and Grill, 151 Swinburne Row, regarding the operation update and request for issuance of license.
Madam Chair, it's just a point of order. I think we should vote to receive this.
That's what I was just going to make a motion on. I move that we receive the communication.
Second.
There is a motion and a second to receive. I see that there is someone from the public. Can we recognize Peter Regan? Mr. Regan, can you please identify yourself with your name and address for the record?
Yes, hi, Attorney Peter Regan, 130 Bellevue Avenue, Newport, representing L&B Associates LLC. Also, I believe online is Chris Bisho, who is one of the principals of L&B. The purpose of my letter was simply to provide the council with an update on the status of the restaurant at 151 Swinburne Row. That update was requested when the liquor license for the restaurant was most recently renewed. We're happy to report that the restaurant is ready to reopen. Current plan is to reopen the outdoor patio and the area under the awning on July 1st, and to open the inside area of the restaurant within 2 weeks thereafter. Mr. Bisho would be available to answer any questions, but that's the plan in a nutshell.
Thank you, Mr. Regan. Is there any discussion or questions on the council for Mr. Regan? Thank you, Mr. Regan. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will go through the roll call vote. Councilor Segley?
Aye.
Councilor McCalla?
Aye.
Councilor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councilor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councilor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Regan.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Councilor McLaughlin?
I know we're about to adjourn, but I previously asked the city manager if you could maybe give us a brief update on how we're doing with face masks tonight. If it's too late to do that, perhaps you could provide us a written report, but this isn't going away, so I'm just curious as to how we're doing. The indulgence of the council, I'd ask them to take a few minutes to do that.
I agree that it's a good thing to get an update on, but I would, given that it's not on the docket, I think it's best that we have the city manager give us a written update.
I'd be happy to do whatever you wish. I can rattle off the information, and right now I have it in front of me if you'd like, as long as the solicitor permits the indulgence.
Why don't you add it to the agenda?
I move that we add to do we suspend the rules? I move that we add an agenda item where the city manager is reporting on the distribution of masks or the enforcement of mask wearing in the city.
Aye.
Oh, there needs a second first.
Oh, second. That's what I meant to say, second.
I'll do the roll call vote to suspend the rules and add that item to the docket. Councilor Segley?
Aye.
Councilor McCalla?
Aye.
Councilor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councilor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councilor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. And the motion passes. Before we go further, I would just like to request that if we have things like this in the future, if we could bring them up at the top of the meeting for the council to vote on the addition of. But I would also like to try to cut down on the last minute amendments to the docket. City Manager, you have the floor.
Sure. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'll be brief anyways. There's about four points I want to make, 5 points. We have coordinated volunteers. Susan Taylor has been kind enough to coordinate volunteers to go on as I think it was referenced the Zorro Brigade. There was an article in Newport this week about it. And I would say that over 1,600 masks have been handed out, mostly primarily along the Thames Street corridor, along with educational materials that indicate the need for masks. Those educational materials take the form of some small business cards that we've had printed out, excerpts from the executive order on masks. We have some placards on masks as well. And I would say to you that our process going forward is, again, to try to enhance the volunteer experience and encounter with individuals in those areas that we think are problematic. Next week, we're going to enhance, you've seen all the signage that we have out, digital signage. I changed some of the language on some of them today to be a little more firm. And you've seen the sandwich boards that we have out that talk about masks, and the banners that are strung about the city on masks. I did have a discussion with the communications officer today, and I've ordered, I think, 10 or 15 more boards, and we're going to have differing messages about masks. I'm just going to put them primarily in the Thames Street corridor, so people are literally tripping over them, and with the various messages about the importance of masks. I would say to all of you, we're working with the restaurants and the hotels, with the Chamber of Commerce, with Discover Newport, and the restaurant, the Hospitality Association came out last week, and they've approved some proofs of some literature that will be handed out through restaurants instructing individuals on the need for mask wearing. I would say to all of you that obviously we're concerned about the lax use of masks, though I would also say to you, at least in observations that I have and others have, that there is an increase in those areas that we were concerned about with mask wearing. And I would like to think that it's as a result of our efforts on education and our volunteers who have done a nice job. But I also suspect that it's also some of the concern about other places that are having problems, Arizona, for example, Florida, California, that there's a little bit of fear creeping in as well. And quite frankly, that's a good thing, because we can't underscore the importance of the need for people to wear masks as we've mandated. It's only going to help. It's not going to hurt. And that would be my very, very brief report. And I appreciate the opportunity to address the council and the public on this. So it's important, if anyone's listening and they can enhance it, the local media, it's vitally important to stress the need for mask wearing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, City Manager. At this time, unless there's anything else, I would like,
Madam Chair,
Councilor McLaughlin.
I just want to, I note that on the DOH website, our numbers have jumped from 72 to 82. What we're doing is extremely important, because as we see happening throughout the United States, to paraphrase what I think I saw somewhere early this week, we're getting tired of COVID-19, but COVID-19's not getting tired of us, and it's not going away. So we have to, as Joe and I have talked, we will never communicate too much the importance of wearing masks.
Thank you for that.
I don't disagree. Thank you. At this time, I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
The motion and a second. I will go through the roll call vote. Councilor Segley?
Aye.
Councilor McAlla?
Oh, aye.
Councilor McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councilor Napolitano?
Aye.
Councilor Taylor?
Aye.
Mayor Bova? Aye. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to see you laugh.